was completely eye-opening to me, but that might be because I'm not used to this kind of world of classical contemporary music.
Because they've been all day with these people and then they see them switch on the performance side of what they do.
And it doesn't really matter if stuff around it changes a bit, but that theme is really important. So I suppose it's about kind of sharing knowledge and sharing experience.
Everybody should have the opportunity and have the access to music, and adults of our level really don't.
This is what we're going to use. And through here. Any other questions? Tea and coffee. Well, CoMA was set up because, in fact, it wasn't just seen. Contemporary music wasn't just seen as difficult. In fact, much of it requires techniques that are not usually taught, extended techniques, often having technical requirements that are beyond amateur ensembles, unusual sounds and so on, which a lot of people didn't want to buy into or find it difficult to buy into. CoMA was set up to, in fact, create a repertoire that bridged the gap, that involved amateur orchestras without any kind of artistic compromise at all.
It's an approach to contemporary music. Frankly, it's an approach to art making, an approach to music making, which is, in my view, absolutely essential for contemporary music and indeed for musical culture in general. In any CoMA experience, the divisions that are usually part of musical culture between composers, performers, any CoMA event, you're going to find that all those boundaries are completely dissolved. So what that means is that everyone is a participant, everyone is involved, engaged the whole time. People are doing completely new things, and new art is being made, new kinds of music are being forged, and new relationships between people and music making are happening all the time. I mean, it's an incredibly invigorating, exciting thing to experience.
The link up with the late Stardust Orchestra, which is much more based around the immense string repertoire which comes from the Baroque and earlier right through to the present times. By bringing the two together, we are able to, again, help to bridge a gap between people who might otherwise not experience contemporary music and those who love it, bring them together into the same place with a mix of concerts, both classical and contemporary. The first summer school was in 1993, and we went to Wortley Hall because we wanted to choose somewhere more or less in the middle of the country. We didn't want it to be another initiative down in the south of England. We wanted to sort of choose somewhere where we felt people could come from the great urban conurbations of the north and also be able to get down from Scotland, and so we chose this as a particularly central location.
That very first CoMA summer school in Wortley Hall was a real eye-opener. I didn't really know what to expect because you naturally, when somebody says contemporary music to you, you think of absolute virtuoso performers, because a lot of contemporary music, certainly a lot of the music that was around then, could only be performed by virtuoso performers. So the whole idea of getting any average musician to come along and spend a week playing contemporary music was totally revolutionary.
it's carrying on a tradition where people, of any walks of life can feel that they can create their own music, can create their own art. And I don't really think it's anything new. Perhaps after the Second World War, the process of composition became a bit more complicated, a bit more difficult, but it's actually interesting to see now that it's taking a step back in many ways, not compromising any artistic integrity whatsoever, but just making it much more accessible for anyone to get involved with.
Can I just hear from the beginning? Can I just hear second violin, violas, cellos and basses?
Everybody should have the opportunity and have the access to music, and adults of our level really don't. It's sort of this missing piece, especially in the States. It doesn't exist so much, and so I think it's starting to come along, but when we started, you would think a city like New York would just be teeming with adults who want to play and who are playing together, and it wasn't the case.
It's been completely different. It's completely taken me out of that headspace I was in before, where I was not limited, but I was thinking in a very kind of specific way. And because the music was so different and so out there, there was I think it was like 8 songs for a Mad King was one of them, and it was about extended vocal techniques and things like a vocal harmonic. And I've never heard of such a thing, but to hear that and have it explained was it was on a level that I've just never really had a chance to experience.
It's like there's this thirst for interaction with the music, but also with the performers, and really valuing this kind of intensive 5 days that people get to spend together. Not pressing too hard is that you're not completely deadening the resonance of the note as well. But if you have the What's really interesting for me as well, teaching people this repertoire and giving people guidance on this repertoire, is how to pitch and explain things in a way that is, quickly digestible and understood, and that you really are aware of the fact that you're giving somebody who probably doesn't have interaction with teachers, and maybe not even very many other musicians for the rest of the year possibly, a few snippets that they can just take away and use in their daily or weekly practice, and to help them feel like they are actually improving. It can come in handy, but of course you're not going to put the chalk mark exactly where you're going to put your finger, because you rub it off. Yeah. So you need to... It's not just about playing contemporary music, it's about playing contemporary music on the piano, and that these two things are really united. I also think they're very lucky, because they do get to have this close contact with people who are at the top of their professional fields and giving concerts of the highest calibre all the time, and to have that interaction in an intimate concert situation, because they've been all day with these people, and then they see them switch on the performance side of what they do.
It's an absolutely fantastic venue for so many things, but ultimately it had limitations, and we had to move on, and we found Bretton Hall, probably about 10 miles away, and it had loads of facilities, magnificent stately rooms to run our activities from, and it had theatres, wonderful performance spaces, and located in there amongst the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, immense possibilities.
One of the most beautiful venues I think we've ever had, because the Yorkshire countryside and the sculpture park all around you. But just to take a walk out into the fields and among the sheep, and find Henry Moores littering the landscape was quite extraordinary. It was a very inspiring kind of venue, and we had some really good times there.
It is now no longer available as either an educational institute or for the sort of activities we had. And I believe the latest plan is to turn it into a spa hotel.
one of the threads, one of the kind of golden threads that goes through the week is the building up to a performance of Stephen Montague's Dark Sun. Dark Sun is just one of the most incredibly, directly, emotionally involving experiences that you can have as a listener or a performer. And it wouldn't have happened without CoMA, but it's just the kind of tip of the iceberg of this huge repertoire of pieces that have been created.
So my hope really is that everyone who's touched by the smaller courses that I run during CoMA will take on board all of those skills and put them straight into when they perform this week with the orchestra and the chorus for Dark Sun.
You're playing the guiras and triangles, so you can measure sticks.
It's kind of giving access to the things that, you know, I understand and have come to understand from, you know, 15, 20 years of experience working with different musicians and different composers and having lots of weird performance situations where just go and do this, you have to do it, you're on stage in 10 minutes and everything's gone wrong all day. And then sharing that experience with another individual.
Lois is going to play the tam-tam in part one. These are kind of...
It's not kind of about taking shortcuts for amateur musicians, but it's about them understanding often the larger picture, the bigger picture.
It's really, at the moment, the only piece on such a grand scale, with such a deep subject matter, with such a huge number of possibilities for people to get involved, that currently exists. Now, what the joy of CoMA is that will probably change in time. Someone will create something else on a similar level. I don't think it could be played by anyone else except people of varying abilities, because the level of commitment that they have to use in order to make these quite rough and ready sounds is something that you won't get from a professional band.
There's a guitar part for it, so I'm playing some very distorted parts in it in some very cool places. I've played in orchestra, but it's always just been as kind of like the chord guy, where they'd do like Christmas carols and they'd say, all right, the chords are C, D, and G. There you go. That's your direction. Go and do it. Dark Sun was a lot more focused. It was again very enlightening.
So I think we're all here for the same goal, really, just to make something magical that's music, and you don't really find that in your everyday life.
It's not very well written, but that bar...
It's sort of an equalizer. You know, it doesn't matter what you do or where you come from. You all come together. No one knows how to play the same amount, and so you just sort of grow together.
But you can practice clearing up.
We moved to High Melton when Bretton became unavailable because it had a similar atmosphere, and it was a bit nearer a city centre, Doncaster in this instance. And although we tried to make links and bring in audiences, that 10-mile distance between the city centre and what is effectively another rural setting for a summer school meant that we didn't bridge the gap. We were always on the lookout for somewhere else. We looked at several places, and eventually we found this one, which is Bangor University in North Wales. Amazing facilities, really supportive environment, and a location to die for, really.
Now here we are at Bangor, which a part of the country which I remember from my childhood, because as a kid I grew up in the West Midlands, and North Wales and Mid Wales was during the summer holidays was very much Birmingham-on-Sea. Everybody from the Midlands used to come here on holiday, and we were no exception to that. So to come here and make music in such lovely surroundings, great privilege.
All the parts correspond to something that genuinely happened, so the emotion has to come across, and it does come across.
We're fortunate that we are in a position, you know, in 2012 to have more material there available, written by composers who are alive.
If we're all in the same bar, it's a really good thing. If we're all on the same beat, that's a brilliant thing. And if we're all playing the same note at exactly the same time, then we've really mastered it.
It's the most positive kind of virus in a way, that experience, because it goes into all of your cells and changes you in a way that only really the greatest music experiences can, and that's what happens here.